Here we go again.
Good morning, Tony Caravan.
You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't. Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale.
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. 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 So many thank yous. There is no government, just people who profit on the myth that it still exists. We live in a corporatocracy. You gotta always come out with something like that. You know, it's just not enough. Yeah. So, here we are. I tell you, it's all an illusion, man. January 22nd. People are friggin' nuts. And I'll tell you, and they're getting nuttier by the day. You know, I put a little pin on there, my pledge pin. But you can't really see it, so I'll just give you a close-up of it. Can't even really make it out there. It's tropical. Palm tree. Kind of thing you wear when you go out to a bar, which I don't really do anymore. A festive bar, happy hour bar, where you got all these happy, shiny people. Like a line from a B-52 song. Camera 2 view outside. It's 3:28 a.m. Eastern Time. Like I said, on the 20th of January, it's pretty quiet, it seems. Originally, I mean, I woke up to the classic Chinese water torture, which is not intended to be anything, you know, against anyone other than the communist Chinese, perhaps. But it's an actual, you know, was an actual thing. They're talking about a 50% chance of snow flurries this morning. It's 30 degrees. We were supposed to get some kind of rain between 6 and midnight last night. I don't think we did, but there was a drip, 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 drip above my head from the attic. I also thought I heard something. I was up there yesterday checking it out, and I thought I heard something rustling around. I mean, I don't know if some critter. One night I left the window open about a month ago or something, but it's the attic, you know. And I know things like squirrels and stuff, they really, so I don't know, it's a bird. I hope there's not a mouse in the house or something like that. I see they're adjusting the temperatures. Originally it was supposed to be -6 on Friday night. Now they're just saying it's 0 degrees Fahrenheit. But it'll be in the teens through the weekend here, mid-Atlantic. Pretty much going to be cold. I would guesstimate pretty much across the northern tier of the U.S. I probably shouldn't have gotten up this early. 3:30 a.m. starting a show. I don't know. What's gotten into me, you know? What's gotten into me? There is no government, just people who profit on the myth that it still exists. We live in a corporatocracy. I swear I watch these shows. You know, I mean, I'll glance at some of these other YouTubers who do these programs. And I swear that the day after, you know, or the day of my morning shows, which obviously, like I say, it's 3:31 now a.m. But I'll watch their shows that, you know, will come on later on in the day type of thing. And they seem to be talking about the same kinds of things. Now, I know they're not possibly watching my show because I have 0 concurrent viewers. And as the day wears on, I'm lucky if I get three from here, and then on Rumble I'll get some. But the number, you have to work it, and I don't work it, and I don't have a staff. And even when I do this kind of stuff, it's and you can almost hear them ding. That's the theme. It's I don't even want to say it, because the last time I played like more than 4, that's like all I'm playing is about 4 seconds of it, and usually you can play 6 seconds of a song without getting a copyright hit. But I mean, it was like, let's just pretend it was a theme from Gidget. Right? I got a copyright hit from playing the theme to Gidget. It was like a 60s show. It's 60 years ago. And the copyright hit didn't come from any like American television network, producer, anybody who had any affiliation whatsoever with the show. It was from some foreign entity or something that was claiming copyright to it. And you probably could go through some kind of, I don't know what kind of way of fighting it. But I mean, I did battle once because I had a song that they were calling a copyright strike on, and it was one of my own songs, and they were claiming that someone had used a beat that was in it that was similar or something, and their whole thing was just two guys. And they weren't really rappers, and they were white guys on top of it. But they weren't really rappers. They were just like talking amateur hour kitty city YouTube video over this kind of semi-repetitive beat thing, which happened to match something that was in my song, which was completely written from scratch, had lyrics and bass and guitar and, keyboards. It was a song. Mine was a song. They were just, and I actually won that one in some kind, by complaining and saying, hey man, they don't own the rights to, boom, 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 some kind of thing. I mean, if I play that thing, I'll get a copyright hit. Probably again from the same people, or for my own music, which is, I find to be very bizarre, to say the least. But it's like one of those things that just takes the winds out of your sail, as I say. Now, what I'm going to do is, let's go to new window, and I have to do this. So I have set up, and this will probably be the end of me here, because they don't like this type of stuff. But I have like a Rumble account, all right? And as you can see, there's a lot of some of my old Facebook stuff, right, is here. Which, goes on endless from back in what was the earliest one? From back in October of 2021, right? There's some classics, Vote Goat. But, that brings us up closer to the present. And so apparently you're able to mix in YouTube's videos, or somehow align them with videos for, so let's go to channel. Well, I guess this is it. So this would be I have basically videos that only exist on Rumble. Okay. So if I were to subscribe, I don't know if I like. Okay, I see they want you to have an account, separate account to subscribe. But in other words, see, I'll have like 3 views on here, right? And then I'll have 3 views on YouTube. So that would be a total of 6 views. Let's see about BitChute. What happens with that? I'm just trying to demonstrate something. I'm half awake. I got to wake up. I need more coffee. Let's look for, see if I used ROCKFLUX on here. I forget. I don't even remember. Okay, yeah. All right. And you could see 2 years, 3 years ago, 3 years, 5 months ago. I haven't really done anything on this thing. All right. You know, so there's a few things. So let's just like take, for example, I don't know, like virtual cage. If you look on the right-hand side, this is why I show you the difference in YouTube. So here's a couple of my beat poetry tracks. 207 views, 205 views, 204 views, 200 views. These are for like some of my beat poetry tracks that I put up a couple of years ago. I haven't even like kept up this site. I haven't this page. The least amount of hits, you know, was a garden vlog, which was 127. Right? And isn't that ridiculous? To just show you that how crazy, you know, and I'm just going to get out of this whole thing. Just how crazy YouTube is and how they're banning me. You know, or what this algorithmic game that they play. When, you know, I could plop something, apparently plop some stuff on BitChute, but I never kept up with it. You know, because I figured BitChute, does anybody use BitChute? Well, apparently they do, because when I posted videos on there a couple of years ago, I was getting like 200 views, and I didn't even like, do anything active on the site, and I just left it. And I've had videos on here for 14 years, you know, or definitely a couple of years here, and they've got got 1 view, 3 views. I mean, one of my recent videos, I think, has like close to 30 views or something like that. But then the other thing is, like, you know, then I just transferred some over to Rumble, and they instantly matched or surpassed YouTube. So this platform is, I don't know, man, it's for the frickin' birds. You know, it's for the birds. It's the same as I notice on Minds and stuff like that. You know, people are afraid of Minds. I don't know why they are. Minds is, like I said before, is really one of the best. Like, it's the best organized, like, overall social media platform. You know, as far as how it's structured and put together. It's so free form that people are afraid to be associated with someone that expresses free thought, you know? Excuse me. So I want to drink coffee and it goes down the wrong pipe. Anyway. But you understand what I'm trying to get at with this thing, and I'm using Minds as an example. That people, they talk a good talk about free speech and all that jazz. But when they're confronted with free speech, you know, they can't they can't deal with it, or they don't want to be associated with somebody else who has some, say, radical idea, to what they think is, normal. And it's not like Minds lets you put stuff on there that's like illegal or anything, It's just they don't basically mess with the First Amendment. So if you say something or put a meme on there that is, it may be off color, or it may, it may be, it's just an expression of free speech. Like I say, it's up to each individual's, personal preference, how far you'll go with something or whatever as far as expressing yourself. But it's like some people just, they're unrestrained, I guess is the best way of putting it. And so this disturbs people who are trying to be mainstream, even though they criticize so-called mainstream media. So they really don't understand the concept of free speech. Free speech means somebody can basically just say whatever they want to, as long as they're not. Freedom is doing whatever you want to do, as long as it doesn't infringe on someone else's freedom. You see? And freedom of speech is saying whatever the hell you want to say, just as long as you're not, involved in like defamation of character or, yelling fire in a theater, something that extreme. But otherwise, that's, these are, some people call this natural law. It's like the idea, from a biblical sense, thou shalt not kill, or as some interpret it, murder instead of the word kill to justify wars, right? But the idea is that, these are, to get into the founding fathers, these are inalienable rights, right? And so it's like the idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the only condition, the only caveat is that you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as long as you don't infringe on someone else's life, liberty, or their pursuit of happiness. You see? And that's what I'm saying. And so you look at a channel like Minds, it's like they basically are they're true to that. So that becomes disturbing to some people. And even the same way as the way on like Twitter and, well, Facebook and stuff. Facebook's like family photo land now and stuff. And for businesses who don't know how to make a website, they use it as their business. The Facebook marketplace or stuff like that. I mean, that's what Facebook's become. But, more so that these people who still just, they hang on to Twitter, but I mean, they're active Twitter users, I should say. And so they're offended by people, and enter these groups, and it's like even on YouTube, that whole thing where people will get together and sign a letter or try to apply pressure to have, or they did it with Rogan on Spotify, right? They tried to get him off of Spotify with some letter, by people that were allegedly doctors, but the majority of them were some were PhDs, but they weren't what they said they were, And the thing about that is that, like, so I say, people are freaking nuts, man. And it's like this world it's just, I don't know, how did I word it in this thing? I tell you, it's all an illusion, man. Well, yeah, we'll get into that. I mean, it's kind of along this line of thinking, but yeah, you have to be able to have everyone should have a thick skin. Okay. It's like, that should be something you should be taught as a child. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Okay. I mean, that's the whole idea. And if and parents are failing if they don't, at an early age, teach their children that don't listen to, kids, right? Because, those same kids are going to grow up and they're the people who are out on the streets with cardboard signs and pointing fingers now and trying to get people banned off of things. And this idea of triggered and all that stuff is ridiculous, really. So totally ridiculous. Because, triggered, just don't. You have so many options on the internet, social media platforms, whatever you want to call them. You can just block. You have settings. Or you just don't have to look at it. You could just scroll past something that you don't see, you're not interested in. Like, why are you looking at it in the first place? And so what happens is these people are so freaking nuts, okay? I mean, it's the only way to say it. I'm sorry, if you're in the psychiatric, profession, psychology, whatever. Well, not even psychology. I think psychologists would have to agree with me on this. I mean, if you're so, like, it bothers you that this person or this someone doesn't agree with you is out there somewhere in the, metaverse or, wherever, somewhere on the planet, elsewhere, that you have to do everything you can to destroy their, their thought, their words, and make them a non-person or something. And then and only then will you have that momentary feeling of, I destroyed a person. Think about how, like, psychopathic that is to begin with, just downright evil, rotten to be that way. But then how psychologically warped it is that bothers you. There are 8 billion people on the planet approximately. And there are people, think about it, 8 billion. All right? The United States is like the former United States, as I call it, is like a fraction, of the global population. Right? If we have 330 million and there's 8 billion people on the planet, do the math, we're in the single digit percentages of global population. So imagine all of these people out there and all of these countries where, we know about the major dictatorships like China, where they have gulags and kill people, right? And some of these other countries, where there's, where they take a machete, and kill 250,000 people with a machete. People who have weird morals, they cut off somebody's hand if they, steal a piece of candy, basically. And it's like, that stuff's going on. But somebody's triggered here in this country if somebody doesn't buy into their ideology that they didn't even have like a couple of years ago, an ideology that they got by watching television news or spending too much time on a smartphone. And so they'll want to destroy this other person, and they become obsessed with it, like these people that have problems. This is real. This is a psychosis. This is the same type of activity. This a type of obsession as people who, I hate to put them in the same league, but they really are. But this would be the same type of person as like that Mark David Chapman guy or whatever his name was who killed John Lennon, right? Somebody so obsessed with another person, right? And so that's what these people are like to me. That's how I see them. I see them in the same league, the same league as stalkers, right? Because in effect, that's what they're doing. Like think about Twitter in a sense. Aren't these people? Aren't they stalking people? And then this whole idea of being triggered, like where's the American Psychiatric Association or something like that? Whatever the hell they have, everybody's got an association. On dealing with the mental issues here, but that this is these are criminally insane people, literally borderline. Let me qualify that: borderline criminally insane people. This is like the person that harms small animals as a child is more likely to become, some sort of, serious criminal as when they grow up. Not all, but like I say, it's a contributing factor. And this whole concept, you don't hear a lot of people talking about that. These people that are that obsessed, that triggered, that crazy, crazy, or just friggin' nuts, like I put in the chat. That, these are sick minds. These are sick minds. And you don't have to be be a PhD in psychology to know that. All you got to do is look statistically, look around, look at crime statistics, or better yet, just watch crime shows on TV. That's all there is crime shows, hospital shows, right? Firemen. It's like, it's like TV, the media is all one big ball. The most popular shows are misery, right? In other words, there's shows about other people's misery. Ever notice that? Top shows. Sorry about that. I was reaching for the carafe, the coffee carafe. The coffee tastes okay today. I don't know. I guess it's just how I scoop whatever I scoop in out of that mixed can. Excuse me. But yeah, people are friggin' nuts. And that's the whole bottom line that's how this happened. And I say happened, it's past tense. It's like, we're in this. It's like when I was saying, the show I said, the great reset already began. So, there's nothing you can do about it except ignore ignore them. It's like this. What I'm trying to say here is there is no government, just people who profit on the myth that it still exists. And so we live in a corporatocracy because the people who used to occupy those halls of government, that's an old, that's what it looked like in the old days. They're marionettes now, right? And the people who, listen to these marionettes, media and politicians, are marionettes of marionettes, puppets of puppets, right? And the whole damn thing is just hypocrisy for profit. These recurring themes that I keep bringing up. But yeah, people are freaking nuts. Now, they're not going to change, Oh, how are they going to change? What are they going to do? Put in 100 million people in institutions? That's this whole idea, that just blows my mind, when people talk about this, Save America thing. And then, this really ticks off a lot of people, think, oh man, it's like, hey, look, apparently there was some Biden press conference or something last night. Man, I was asleep at 6:00. I went to bed at 6. I mean, how else do you think I'm doing a show? I got up at 2 something today. Got my 8 hours of sleep, 6 to 2. I certainly don't going to stay up and watch, some guy, drugged up for clarity, drugged up so he could answer questions with probably some inner earpiece in him being fed things. And I don't know. I glanced this morning right before I came on the air. It's a live show, by the way, So I have to remind people.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
And I noticed that there were, various comments from across the board. But one of the ones that stood out to me was that Biden insisted that he had accomplished a lot. And I'm trying to think, what did you do? So I just want you to understand, it's like, it's not like I'm against them all, okay? Because it's all an illusion, right? Right? It's all an illusion. There's this myth that government still exists. It doesn't exist. You have a corporatocracy, all right? The government and the media are marionettes, puppets. That's it. There's no other, don't tell me something different. There isn't anything different. Okay? That's just the way it is, like that guy used to say. And that's the way it is. Yeah. It's damn good coffee, I'll tell you, man. I don't know what it is.
Brilliant!
So I do these shows. I get up in the morning, it's a habitual thing. I had some oat and bran cereal with some honey and blueberries and flax meal. That was it. And I didn't even have anything, I put some bottled water in to moisten it up. A little and a dash of cinnamon was thrown in there somewhere. So it's my high fiber breakfast. Mostly. Though, even buying the stuff, the oats and the bran still had some some additive stuff in it. You just can't. So yeah, I guess I would do that no matter what. Maybe I would have stayed in bed laid around in bed for another hour or so, other circumstances. I still have to go up to the third floor to see what the hell happened last night. If it did, I have no idea what happened between 6 and, I don't know, midnight or so. I got up and I heard like a drip, drip. I have like a giant bucket, like a 5-gallon bucket under a couple of strategic spots where the roof has some problems. And so it's like a drip, drip. I mean, even in a serious storm, for the most part, I've got it somewhat managed for now. I mean, if it's a real one of those, rain, all day rains, rain blowing sideways and stuff, yeah, that's a nightmare. But at least, I've got this. The next week is just going to be so cold that it's not going to rain. Just flurries. And I don't know if I don't think that this USB camera 2 up there is capable of showing that if there's snow flurries. It's not. It's just really not that sensitive a camera. In fact, if there weren't snow, it obviously must be snow flurrying because the street was black when I woke up. In other words, cleared. That white stretch. You could see the mound of snow where they plowed. See how the car was on the street. So it's white. So obviously it may well be snow flurrying, but that camera's just not sensitive enough. But I think it's kind of a neat aspect of it. It's a live show, so I wanted to add something else live, So like that's outside the studio. And it's an odd, its location is not where, it's not like it's looking out like that's a window or something. Technically it's let's see if I can get the finger in the right direction. Technically it's over if you could see my hand. Technically the window is over there from your vantage point. All right, and the camera's low looking, so but it's nonetheless, it's a live view. But yeah, I'm fascinated that I'm not the only one saying, or observing that, people won't come out and use the words like that. People are friggin' nuts. But, they'll go so far because there's still this, these people are making a living. I don't make a living at this. I'm not monetized. I don't have enough numbers. Even if I was monetized, I wouldn't make any money on YouTube with 3 views or, the absurdity of this. Though I do get, 10, 12, 22, 30, whatever. I mean, I used to get into thousands years ago, but once they clamp down on me, they have these algorithms that just make you invisible from search and stuff. And so you're hidden, you do these things. However, it's live and it's being recorded live so that I have it for posterity and I could take it, download it, and put it on Rumble or BitChute. It's just that unlike these people who have staffs and make money, I can't afford to pay anybody. So that's why I was surprised to see BitChute. Some of those videos were up 3 years ago, and I'm going, man, as time flies. It seemed like I did that last year or something. And, woe is me. If I would have been, keeping up on BitChute, I probably would have had thousands of views over there and maybe been building an audience and sending people to my other websites, and maybe over the holidays I would have sold some books and shirts and hoodies and stuff. Who knows? Que sera, sera, you know. C'est la vie. That's so weird. It's so weird. And it's strange, it's like this idea, I didn't realize how groggy I was. I guess I should have stayed in bed a little longer. But I don't know. I don't know. I got up. Here I am. Now it's 4:07, so now I'm like committed. I have to go down. I have to go to the walk the street, that snow street, which probably has ice under it. I have to walk like a mile and a half down to the grocery store where they have a pharmacy to pick up a prescription. Guess I could wait another day or so to do that, but I like to do it for exercise sake as well, because I didn't do anything yesterday. I guess they're putting down rock salt or something. That was like some kind of humongous plow. Yeah. But it's comfortable inside. So hopefully the power doesn't go out because of the cold, or anything weird like that. I mean, if we would have gotten the rain they were talking about last night, that could have iced up the power lines and tree limbs, and you could have had things falling over this antiquated infrastructure we have, which could have caused a power outage. There's nothing worse than a power outage in the wintertime, which the U.S. is just ill prepared for. And I understand that so-called infrastructure bill they talk about, there's something like 8% or maybe the low double digits, small percentage of it actually goes to doing anything to improve the actual infrastructure. Everything else is some kind of, bureaucratic expenditures rewarding people who've helped with their campaign, campaign contributors, or, they do stuff like that. It's like the people on that that get these White House jobs and stuff. They were all people from like that guy from Pennsylvania who was in charge of voting ended up being the guy with the long hair, the woman, I guess he's, the woman who was a guy got some job, but his claim to fame was he was the one who counted the votes in PA. I mean, this is what I'm trying to say, how people are friggin' nuts. This stuff goes on right in front of their eyes, and they just like, yeah. Well, ABC News says, I don't know. I do not know. I can't figure it out, really. And I'm starting to think that I might have made a mistake with the ROCKFLUX. Okay, first of all, color correction. No, that's not. Okay. What I really wanted to do was, I think that originally I'd set this up to be black and white. Okay, so yeah. But the problem is that's too much color. So what I need to do is just take it back and give it a tint of color, so it matches kind of me, which I'm a little washed out, right? See, so there's color there. And it's the same with the girl, the hoodie girl. Like, I know I have a color version of her. If I can find it. Let's see. Hoodie. Bear with me. I know it kind of looks weird when I'm just staring into space, but I'm actually staring through files. So it's like, where do I store these things? Product pictures. Hoodie, black and white. Let's see. So the question is then what? The hoodie we really want to promote, or do we want to promote something else now? Is it at that point where it's time to maybe think of something different? You know, that's the question. Like game over or something. Well, we have that on the end. So let's just take RF hoodie. And let's do the same with her. Let's filter her. Black. Let's see. Color correction. And let's just take the saturation down a little bit. So it's not overpowering. There we go. So we have color on the screen, but it's not. It's kind of more fitting for 4:13 a.m. It's a lot different if it would have been, if it's a daytime show. And I wish I had some backlighting to light up some of the stuff going on in the back, but I just don't. I've tried a couple of different things. If you look, I actually have, I'll just get out of the way. You see, I've got the droid back here. Let's see if I can. You can see a little bit more when I do this. You can see the everything you know is wrong. Apparently, they're pushing the K. But you see when I'm in front of it, none of that light escapes over. Apparently, they're pushing the KN95 masks now. That's just interesting because I just got my doctor's appointment changed to a video conference with this surgeon guy since I had my PSA results were positive. I mean, not positive or negative or whatever. In other words, good. This, I got a 6-month reprieve as far as the big C is concerned, as in cancer, not the other one. But going to that office, that's like kind of an N95 type of place. And you want to wear something like that in there because, man, those people are sick. And sometimes I've been in there and they've had people that they've wheeled over because there's like this over from the hospitals across the street. Like they'll wheel somebody over from the hospital in a hospital bed. I mean, it's pretty weird. So it's like, I don't even like going to that place. But I can't breathe in an N95 mask, personally. Okay? I'm not saying anything negative to you, YouTube, gods. I'm not saying anything negative. But apparently the K95 are even harder to breathe through. So I just basically, I've got a video. It's like, hey, give me a video thing. my neck. It's just the way my collar is in the shadow. I kind of have like the Elvis. I've got two black shirts on right now. You know, just to stay warm. And the reason I did it is the black shirt with the collar, which I like. It's one of my favorite shirts, and it's nice and good winter house warm shirt. But it doesn't have a pocket on it. Why does anyone make a shirt without a pocket? You know, I never even. I mean, you know, even T-shirts. So the shirt that I have over it has a pocket. So it's like, okay, the best of both worlds. Just put two shirts on. So now I got a pocket in the front. I got a collared shirt. They're warm. The one underneath is long sleeve. I have the sleeves kind of rolled up a tad because they're like extra long. I don't know why. Tall man shirt. Taller than I. So I have to keep looking back. I tell you, it's all an illusion, man. And I have 3 of these things to report. You know, somehow these people got in my chat, but they didn't show up in my as viewers. So all I could figure is that, like I say, that's some sort of game. There's no way. Why would YouTube Studio, YouTube, you know, the Google Alphabet family allow, you know, their algorithm, their, you know, YouTube to have such a blatant hole, you know, that people could come in so easily and sneak in things into chat without showing up on their settings. So they have to be aware of it. So that, you know, that gets into the Occam's razor thing. So it seems to me that it's some sort of, it's possibly some sort of entrapment thing where they're hoping you don't report them so that they could come back to you and ban you or do something, saying because they do that with people with comments too, right? Oh, there was a comment in your thing that said such and such, so we're giving you a strike for that or something. You know. Yeah, I know, but it was some random person who commented. I don't know anybody. I can't see my comments. I don't even know how you're supposed to do that. Look at them. Let's see, there's a thing down the bottom here. Let's see what this is. Oh, no, that's a send feedback. Cancel. Yeah, I don't see. What's the create highlight video, add stream marker, share, participants, pop out chat, toggle. I have no way. Webcam. Manage. Let's see. Yeah. I just was looking at my YouTube Studio, you know, analytics, you know, get up. Trying to get a little more comfortable here. See, I got the chair like kind of forced up with a combination of duct tape and weird bolts and stuff. So I don't know if you notice my head's a little bit higher. And I haven't been falling down as much. But I still have to get something like Gorilla Tape or something to like reinforce this, because this is just like duct tape. And the screws I used were just these little, you know, little silver screws. So I don't know how long they're going to hold. But for the time being, it's okay. Now, if we take camera 2, I'm on camera 2, and add color correction. Oh, wait a second. Close. It's video capture device. Yeah. Filters. Okay. Now, if we go to color correction, let's see if we can. See, the problem is that when you increase the gamma, you get a little bit of a. Yeah, and the brightness. Yeah, you see that shaking? I don't know if you can see it, but I see it. It's like a shaking, it like a almost a distortion. When you go too far beyond the normal. See, I could do something like this. It just looks ridiculous. See, it's just not a night vision camera. That's the problem. It's just a crappy USB camera. But it works. Does the job. You can see the trucks speeding up. They'll be starting, well, it's only 4:23 a.m. Yeah, I got up an hour earlier than usual. That's why, the coffee's starting to kick in now. I'm starting to wake up. So, we'll get into this thing. Maybe I'll get a little more animated. But what I was trying to say with this, I made this card yesterday at the end of the day, before I went up into the chambra upstairs. And there is no government, just people who profit on the myth that it still exists. We live in a corporatocracy. And that's the problem that I noticed. And like I keep saying, forget this. People just won't grasp that. They don't believe it. They can't. Though some people do admit the influence of the various, lobby groups and corporatists and all that kind of stuff. Big tech and et cetera. Big pharma, you can't ignore the power of big pharma. But it's this idea that people ignore the idea that we no longer live in a constitutional republic, and that there's, like I was saying before, it's like they complain about the First Amendment being abused, right, by big tech. But then when there's a site like Minds that is pretty much out there, doing everything and doing it right, a lot of work into that site. There's an awful lot of work goes into that site. I mean, have you ever seen Minds? Let's take a look at Minds. The average person probably isn't even seen it. They keep that under wraps pretty good. I don't know why. The media and people just don't want to talk about it or something. All right? I'm already in Minds. I don't know if I could log in or not. Yeah, it's going to let me log in. That's good. Okay. So this is, you're not seeing this. Now you are. Okay. All right. This is Minds. Okay. Now, if you look at Minds, it's got the classic setup. In the center here is your scroll. Okay. over here, your options. And they're into like, they've got their own crypto, you can make money on mines. There's the news feed. You could create a vlog. They've got live chat. But you see what I mean? It's free form. So it's like without going over the limit, and then, here's notifications. So here's somebody who subscribed to me. I'll check out who they are. Actually, that's a pretty good one there, isn't it? So, I'll subscribe back to that person. And of course, I have my channel here, which basically all I primarily do with it is just post my previous videos. But you can see I have like 440 subscribers. I've got like 146,000 views, overall views. I'm subscribed to about 369. I just haven't kept it up. But you can see these are some of my previous videos. And back in the old days, and I don't even know how to get there because I've been on here for a long time. That, I used to have blogs on here. But you understand what I'm saying. I'll just give you a glance, like here's some. You see what I mean? This isn't exactly your Twitter or your, people who've been kicked off of other sites, right? Obviously have sites here. Okay. And you could, like these things, dislike them, that's, But it's a total free form site. But it's done very well. And you could see here's another one of these things that I have in the interim somehow snuck in. But there's mine. It's an interesting site. And it is what you want it to be. Like you could subscribe to who you want to subscribe, and mainly the people that I think appear in your feed are the people you subscribe to, or maybe not unless you go to the main feed, in which case you can block if you don't want to watch, some of the more extreme stuff. I mean, there's people there that are into, scantily dressed, women and stuff like that, other things. I mean, freedom is freedom. It's not like porn or anything. Like I say, they operate within the bounds of legality. And that's basically, what freedom is. Freedom is, doing whatever you want to do as long as it doesn't infringe on somebody else's freedom. And you have these inalienable rights. I'm repeating it again, as life, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness. So, you have your life. You just don't take a life, right? Liberty, we talked about. Freedom is fun. Just don't infringe on someone else's. And you should have the right to pursue happiness. And you should have the right, the concept of pursuit of happiness, even to me, like I say, that's the only one I even have a problem with. I think you have the life, liberty, and to be happy. Right? not just pursue it. Because it's almost, that's what I think of when I see this. I see these people that remind me this picture could have been taken 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, right? And they're people in pursuit of happiness. So they're exercising their inalienable rights, right, for the pursuit of happiness. But I would much rather those people just be happy. You see? That's the thing. Happiness. And you remember and people don't watch my shows. I repeat these things, but we're human beings. I think at one time I did this too. Everything I've said everything before, probably. Oh, by the way, what's the note? Oh, pick up prescript. I always keep notes, index cards, man. 50 cents, you could buy a pack of 50 cents or $1 at the Dollar Tree. You get a thick pack of index cards, man. They're great. Bedside note, keep a couple by your bedside, keep a couple by your computer or kitchen, wherever kitchen table, wherever you are, and you think of something, write it on there, and you'll never forget it. And they're way cheaper than Post-it notes, right? Index cards. A penny a piece, sometimes a half cent a piece. But I was trying to boil down life, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness into one word. And basically, the one word is happiness. Right? Life meaning, having life, having health, not fearing for your life, right? Right? Fear of your life being taken away, being harmed, right? So you have the right to life, meaning living and health, your health and stuff. It's your right, not the government, is in charge of it. Liberty, freedom, to be free. Well, freedom is freedom. Freedom means being, you happy, healthy, free, do what you want to do, don't infringe on other people. But you can't be happy unless you're free. And so the idea is it boils down to, if you just think of the one single word, happiness. Because it's hard to be happy if your life is threatened, or you're not healthy, or if you're not free. So ultimately, really, it's not the pursuit of happiness, it's just happiness. You could condense, the entire, phrase, down to just one word, happiness. It's all about happiness. And I think people forget that. And there are so many unhappy people, which gets back to my earlier conversation when I was talking about these triggered people, people are friggin' nuts, which, people don't like you to say that, that's not politically correct. Well, what else are you going to say? They're mentally challenged? No. I'm not talking about somebody who has an illness, Somebody who has an illness or is mentally challenged in a certain way, that's a whole different story. That's a clinical problem. That's a medical issue that I'm all for giving that person treatment, helping them, and doing whatever we can for them. No. I'm talking about people being freaking nuts, who aren't mentally challenged in the sense of a disability. Right? People who are triggered, obsessed, basically borderline criminally insane. That's what the media and the politicians have done to tens of millions, if not 100 million people in this country. They've created a class of near criminally insane people. And I'm sorry to use the words, but they're friggin' nuts. And they're believing and obsessed with things that 5 or 10 years ago they didn't even give a shit about. Right? Or weren't even aware of. There's people out there talking about bigotry and racism and stuff like that who obviously weren't even born when Martin Luther King Jr. was alive. And some of them, their parents weren't even of any kind of cognitive age to be aware of who Martin Luther King Jr. was and what he was saying and anything of that sort. They're like twice removed from Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights movement. And the feminist movement for that matter. Right? Which was a sexual revolution, so it was all encompassing beyond just feminism. So, they don't even have the history, the justification, to even to speak about these things and protest about these things, because they have no direct connection to it. They're twice removed from it. They have no idea. They weren't around. Their parents weren't even around. Right? They read something in the New York Times and now it's become curriculum in schools. And they change pages on Wikipedia and search results on Google. You see what I'm saying? People are freaking nuts. They don't know what they're talking about. And if you try to explain to them, then you trigger them. Right? And then they become obsessed. And they have obsessive behavior. And they basically act out like borderline, criminally insane people. Now, when you have a society where you have, maybe a third of the population that's borderline criminally insane, do you have a solution for that? I mean, you actually have people who are calling for people to be imprisoned because they can't get this thing, right? Like I say, everything I say, this is a personal vlog, all right? This is listed under people and blogs, all right? This, this is,
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
This is my story. You're in my house. There's the view outside my front window, okay? This is YouTube. I'm a YouTuber in the true sense. I'm not monetized. This isn't a business for me. Do you see what I mean? This is what YouTube was founded for. 14 years ago, I was putting videos, might have been 15. I don't know when YouTube started, if it was 14, 15, the original before Google bought it even or whatever. I don't know. I don't know the exact history. Let's look it up so I'm not, not talking out my ass here. Okay, when was, and I said Google, I meant YouTube. When was YouTube created? February 14th, 2005. Let's see. The first video on YouTube was some guy at the zoo. Okay, 2005. The question is, when did I get on YouTube? I don't know. All I know is I have videos that are like 14, 15 years old. Okay. So they may be older than that. All right. So I've been on here for a long time. So in other words, a 21-year-old was 5 or 6 years old, probably wasn't on YouTube, unless their parents were whatever. So they don't even know that era of YouTube, and I was probably doing things before that because I was publishing Amazon videos on the 2014. So we probably would have had our Antarctica and some of our other videos a year or two before that. So yeah, I would say people in their early 20s, I've been doing this before those people even knew YouTube existed, right? And prior to that, I wasn't so concerned with YouTube because we had our own servers and we had our own bandwidth. We were based out of Southern California, and we physically had our own server that was based at an ISP, and it was in the building. It was our server, and we had access to it. We could go in and swap out hard drives. You understand what I'm saying? This isn't like some weird thing. We had access, personal, physical access to our server at an ISP that had some of the best bandwidth in the country at the time. This is back in the 90s, right? And, because I used to do a show, a worldwide show broadcast. And I would get, I would get 20,000 listeners live. Tony Caravan Live was, by the way, right? So, so you think about that, 20 some years ago. Like if you just, I don't know. Let's look at something here new. Let's go to the Wayback Machine. And let's go to let's check. I'm going to take you along. I mean, this is pretty fascinating because, like I say, this is
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
So back in 2004, let's go to 2002. Okay, so that would be 20 years ago. And today, what's today's date? The 20th. So let's see let's see if I was doing anything. This only mainly shows changes you made to your site. So let's go to 2001, even further back. So in February, here's a snapshot of my site. See, Tony Caravan Live, longest running lounge show on the net, new show this week. This would have just been a promo. And you see how I had this weird radio dial down the bottom. The thing about the internet, this machine, let's go back to 1999. Yeah. You see how even then I had it set up. You could see the same VU meter, right? And this would have been ad banners and various sponsors of my show back then. How do I get back to that? Here we go. So let's go back to the earliest. So it looks like in 1999, let's go to January. There's 2 screen captures. In January of 1999, Oldies Jukebox, the Y2K clock, right? Look at this. CD Now, the banner actually showed up. These were my early sponsors. MSN Yellow Pages, Yahoo, right? Make your own custom CDs. Copyright 98.99. So that would have been 24 years ago. the internet fireplace. Let's see if sometimes these links actually still work. Adobe Flash. It was made with Adobe Flash, so the Flash player is no longer supported, but it would have played it otherwise. Now, isn't that wild? But like I say, let's go to 2002 and let's look in March. We apparently did something. What was I doing then? This is when the show started to become into, from the dumbing of America and the consumerism society to culture industry and conspiracy theories. This is one of my early books. And apparently these graphics, the longest running lounge show on the internet, archives. Let's see if we can get any graphics at all from this time frame. Back in 2002. Bear with me. Yeah. Let's take it 19 years. Well, anyway, you got the picture. Just so you know. You know, like I said, I'm not lying. I was, so like the Wayback Machine's got some, rough screen captures of some of my lounge shows. And then I was doing talk shows too. It wasn't just all music and stuff. And, by the 2000s, it was more of this. And I have some of those shows I've played for you. These shows, like this stuff.
Humans as pets. The topic for this week's discussion. Welcome to another Tony Caravan Live. Tonight I'll be doing something a little bit different.
That was 20 years ago.
Tony Caravan with you. The fire.
20 years ago, those shows. So I was doing talk shows back then too. And so the idea is that, so even somebody 30, getting close to their 30s, and that's who's running things now. These people you see on TV and stuff. They would have been like 10 years old. They didn't know what was going on, I mean, this 20, we're talking about, these people were like scared to death, hiding in closets because of, 9/11 and stuff like that. You know what I mean? They weren't aware of that. They weren't talking about these. We were doing shows about that kind of stuff. And like I say, in the 90s, I was doing, even the Wayback Machine. But, they don't, the problem with the Wayback Machine is it's not all encompassing, unfortunately. But at least it's evidence, that I was doing it this long. So how can a guy who can at least, even with the Wayback Machine, take you back to 1999, though I was doing this stuff in the early 90s, and I was on the internet in 1985. Basically, I was, 10 books, 50 songs, right? The classic. So that's, and these Johnny-come-latelys, they just don't have a clue. So it's kind of, I don't know. It's fascinating. It's crazy when you think about it. So people are friggin' nuts. And that's, and I don't care if that's not politically correct for someone, for people. But, when you have a third of the country that just is not living in the real world, right? And they're believing in the myth that government still exists. then you don't have a really good outlook for the future. And when people see this and go like, I didn't know what you're trying to do, man. That doesn't make any sense. You're crazy. Right? And it's like, no, you're friggin' nuts. Because you don't understand. And there's the answer to this I gave at the end of the show yesterday. Somebody came on and then they came off. Like being called friggin' nuts. No, you're friggin' nuts. But the answer to this show, or to what I'm saying, it was the very end of yesterday's show. And, and I want to, on these shows, it is a continuation. I think this year is more of like a continuation. It's like a nonstop show. We're building from one show to the other. That's why I'm keeping some of these slides up. All right. So at the very end of yesterday's show, and you can watch the build up to it, where, it was like the show was the man with the plan. And so I finally gave the plan at the very end of the show. So I guess it would be fitting to like talk about that plan in a little more depth in today's show. And the idea is that the answer isn't repeating this, something that looks like this is a picture from a week ago, but a picture that could have been taken 2 years ago or 5 years ago, right? The answer isn't some press conference that I was asleep for last night. I wouldn't watch if you paid me. Literally, if you paid me. I don't want the money, okay? I'm not monetized anyway. Unless you want to, well, that's another story. Okay. But the idea is that the only way to defeat these people, and here's the thing that nobody's talking about. So while all the shows that I do watch seem to agree with me, and if I was the type of person, I'd almost say they watch my show in the morning and get ideas, because when I watch these shows later in the day, the end of the day, they're talking about the stuff I'm talking about. Now, it could just be this commonality of the human mind, and where certain people are on the same wavelength about it. I mean, obviously what's going on is obvious, right? So anyone whose eyes are wide open can see it, and when I say a third of the people are friggin' nuts, it's just like they're afraid to say that because they don't, because that's not politically correct. It's just like I showed you with minds. People don't want to use minds because they're afraid. They don't want real freedom of speech. They're afraid of freedom of speech. They want their version of freedom of speech. See, they don't like Twitter's version of freedom of speech, or Zuckerberg's version of freedom of speech, or even YouTube's version of freedom of speech. But they don't really want, right, the founding fathers' version of freedom of speech. See, they want their version of freedom of speech. And that's what the point is. You have a red wave, then they want to put their mandates upon the other half. You see, that's why the system is broken. That's why I say it's the former United States. All right? That's why I'm trying to explain it's a corporatocracy. So how do you defeat? How do you win? All right? What do you do when you're in this dilemma? Well, there's no guarantee, that we can get out of this mess. There is no guarantee. This isn't a sure foolproof solution. But it is a possible solution to the problem, and it's the easiest one there is, because the idea is this solution requires you to do nothing. In other words, if the true marionettes are the media and politicians, and you're becoming a puppet of the politicians and the media. All right. How do you free yourself? How do you free yourself? All right. Simply, you don't watch the media. They lose the ratings. They lose their funding, and they eventually vanish. You ignore the politicians. They lose their influence. They lose their donors, and they vanish. The corporatocracy then, all right, goes back to big tech, goes back to focusing on technology. Big ag goes back to focusing on medicine, right? Curing diseases. Big ag goes back to producing food. You follow me? The military-industrial complex goes back to, one would hope, to creating defense, right? Provide for the common defense. They said military-industrial complex, and somebody like cut out on that too. Do you see how people are triggered? And then media is like consolidated down to where there's just local television stations. We don't need, in an age of the internet, you don't need national media. And then remember, because no one's abolished the Constitution even now, they're just ignoring it. They're ignoring the Constitution. They're ignoring the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, and all that stuff. So then you have corporations, free market capitalism, and a constitutional republic. And it required the American people to do absolutely nothing. That means turn off the TV, don't vote, don't go to rallies, don't get involved in the cult of personality of political figures or Hollywood figures or any kind of, cult figure. Get rid of politics as pop culture, okay? SNL, go back to doing skits, right? Like Belushi is a samurai, weird stuff like that, goofy stuff, wild and crazy guys, all right? Humor. Comedians, go back to being comics, okay? Not political satirists, all right? Because there used to be that delineation. Here's a political satirist, Here's comedian or comedian, right? You see what I mean? Everything's backwards, upside down, and inside out right now. Schools just teach. Okay? Just teach. All right? People how to survive, as a human being in a society with other human beings. Okay? And it's that simple. Now, do you think that's going to happen? Well, it's not likely. But it is the solution, and it's the only solution, because the red wave is just going to displace one group for another and basically we're going to have this constant battle back and forth. And this battle back and forth is nothing new. Before things really ratcheted up, before the internet got completely out of control, I wish you would have seen that one, when we went to the Wayback Machine, that one book that I was reading a description of. That in that book, which was like prior to, social media, all right? Because so remember, none of this stuff, social media, none of this stuff really happened until the 2000s, okay? And in fact, email and stuff like that, AOL and all that stuff, the dot-com revolution happened in the late 90s, and it didn't really take hold. Then you had a dot-com crash, and then you didn't have everything build up. You didn't have the iPhone and the iPod and stuff. That was all 21st century stuff, okay? So what I'm trying to get at is that, people, they don't know, they didn't know any of this stuff. They weren't like, this is all brand new. It's brand new. But not to somebody who's 20 something or even 30 something, because they weren't cognitive of this kind of thing. They were born into this environment, and their parents, were not cognizant of the things. In other words, 60 years ago was 1960. All right. So if a person if you're 30 years old, then your mother was 30 years old in 1962. I mean, in other words, born in 1962. You grasp what I'm trying to say? So by the time, and especially in those days, people weren't real, they weren't throwing stuff at kids at a real early age. Kids were playing with trucks and dolls and stuff until they were like, right before they were like what you would call tweens or something, 8-year-olds and stuff like that. So if you have a 60-year-old mother, right? Somebody born, in 1962, she was like 9 years, or no, not even. She would, she would have been 8 years old in 1970. Woodstock would have came and went. The Beatles were breaking up. I mean, the civil rights movement, 1971, she would have been like, 9 years old. At that point, she could still been playing Barbie dolls with her friends and stuff. Because that's how kids were, driving a pink bike. You see what I mean? Down the street. And swinging on swing sets and stuff. That's what people in the 60s and the early 70s, kids did still back then. They didn't have smartphones and, video games and that kind of, or any of this kind of stuff. The TV shows were kiddie shows. They were cartoons and stuff. You see what I'm saying? So they're a 30-year-old themselves, and their parent, even their parent, would not have been cognizant. The Kennedys and Martin Luther King would have already been assassinated. You see? By the time they were 10 years old, in other words, the Vietnam War would have already been over. So they wouldn't even know that. And by the time you got to the late 70s, when they were just entering, by the time they entered their teens or tweens, as they say, that's when, you had what I call, classic R&B, and all the music was about love. Because the war was over, the civil rights movement was over, the feminist movement was over, all that stuff had passed. Enough years had passed, several years had passed, in fact. And so by the mid to late 70s, people were like, man, they were just thinking about love and fun and good times. So I don't know where their parent, so if a person is 30 years old, their parent would have had a good should have had a good childhood, unless they were abused or something. I mean, those were the best years to grow up. Post all the tumultuous 60s, because if you were a child, you weren't cognizant of all these things. You see, their parents might have been, and might have been even, could have been anything, but I mean, the point is, so this is what I keep trying to explain. people are twice removed from this stuff, and it's as if this revisionist history, they're recreating something that these people have not only no direct knowledge of, but they don't even have indirect knowledge of it through their own families. Because all the key players had already been, and all the key events had already ended by the time their own parents came, to the age of reason, put it that way. You see? And by the time they were at that so-called age of reason was a time of was the real peace and love in America. It wasn't the 60s. You're just looking, they love this, they get file footage of Woodstock and some of this stuff and all that crap. No, those were tumultuous, horrible times, man. There was a Vietnam War. People were going off to war. It was ridiculous. Kent State, assassinations. It was, bombings. It was horrible. The 60s weren't what you think it was. She Loves You, yeah, 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 the Beatles. No, you want to understand the 60s, listen to Ozzy Osbourne, War Pigs, right? Listen to Ozzy Osbourne's Paranoid album, all right? The lyrics to a couple songs on that album. And you'll understand coming into the 70s, out of the 60s into the 70s, what was going on. Do you see that truck? How fast that truck went up there? My neighborhood, 25 miles an hour speed limit. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? So that's what I'm trying to say. So, people are friggin' nuts. A third to half the people are friggin' nuts. Brainwashed, indoctrinated, conditioned, out of their minds. Don't know what the heck's going on. They have no connection. They're just spouting out things that they've been told by teachers who have no connection to it. Right? You see what I mean? A 60-year-old teacher doesn't have, a 60-year-old teacher and a 60-year-old parent has no connection to these things. So they got no right. You got no right to be teaching kids this stuff, warping minds. And now they're warping kids, little kids, warping their minds and teaching them some kind of dogma and craziness. So that's like, these the young kids now are coming home, really getting triggered. They're like they're 3 times removed from any of this stuff. They have no idea what the heck's going on, what went on. But what I was trying to talk about before, what was really troubling me yesterday, I was sitting in my chair upstairs, kind of semi-bored. I ended up watching more Fringes. I watched a bunch. I think I watched about 3 Fringe. I'm watching that show Fringe now. My seat's uncomfortable. No matter what I do to this chair. And I finally got it to be raised up, but now it's just downright uncomfortable on my butt. But I was thinking about, every now and then I'd be like, I wasn't just like watching Fringe, binge watching. I'd maybe go over to YouTube. I figured out how to you could get Rumble to work on Fire TV. There's an app. They have an app, which means I'm sure they have an app on some of the other services. I'm not sure, but I'm sure you could probably get it on Roku, I think. I don't know. But I think Rumble, for the time being, in the short term, is going to be it. And I'm sure, this idea of Spotify, it looks like they're standing behind Rogan. And the idea that Joe Rogan is getting more views on average than all these cable crazies combined, really says something about our society. So people are kind of like, those who get it, get it. Those who don't, don't. And the problem is, that's the thing. There's nothing you can do with a warped mind. There's nothing you can do with these people. You know, like I say, they're near criminally insane. Okay? You know, in other words, they need therapy. But that's the last thing in the world they think they need. I mean, because they're triggered. These are psychological problems. You know, things like obsession, right? Obsessed with like weird ideologies, obsessed with like getting someone deplatformed, obsessed, being triggered by somebody who just says some kind of word, right? You know, that's a mental problem. That's like psychological. You know, they need to see a shrink. But I mean, you know, maybe that's a good business to get into right now, because there's about 100-some million people that seriously need therapy. They need counseling. They need seriously to see a shrink. I'm turning off the power on my cup warmer, by the way. Everything on the show's branded. There's even the old morning show mug next to the robot. The last drop of coffee is still hot. It's actually hot as the first. Steamed up my glasses. But while I was sitting on this pink chair, I guess you're waiting for that story, you know. Anyway, let's get this.
Quality, quantity, and variety.
ROCKFLUX.
Let's get this show on the road.
Yeah, we'll get it on the road, and then we'll finish it up. Just about over. The camera, too. Look at those trucks. Watch. You got guys doing 25 miles an hour? Would you like a truck driving that fast through your neighborhood? Yeah, it's insane. Why'd the lights go out across the street? That's interesting. You notice that? I hope we're not getting some rolling power outage. You see that? There was lights in those windows across the street. That's strange. It's a store. I don't know why those lights would have gone out. So I'm sitting in this pink chair, and I'm hearing all this stuff about everybody doubling down. You know, I flipped over to Rumble. So I watched a little bit of that Bongino guy, right? Who I normally don't you can't follow everybody. Do you know what I mean? It's impossible. You'd have to sit in front of TV all day long, and I don't. And I'm not a news junkie, so I don't care. So I like occasionally will look at different things. There's some weird lighting things going on across the street. Like, what is that light like on the side thing? I don't know. Strange things are happening. So, but I don't know if it was the Bongino guy or something else, because I had to go through this rigmarole. It's not easy to get these apps on your TV if you don't have a smart TV. See, if you have a smart TV, you know, it's easier to hook up apps. Because first of all, some of them come with it, but other ones, it's like, I don't know, I guess it's set up so you can do it. I don't know. I don't have a smart TV. I have Fire TV, the Amazon Prime thing. Okay? And so I have to, like, if I want to add an app, then I have to, like, log in on my on a computer or a smartphone or some device, and they give you a code, and you have so long, that code's only active for so long, and you have to like pair that device and put in this your password and this, that, the other, and and then it finally there, and then it takes a while for the thing to, anyway. So I was messing around with that. I managed to I go, okay, great, Rumble's on there, because supposedly, allegedly, Rumble has this thing where I'm going to be able to do this live broadcast using this exact same program on Rumble. Okay, so I could originate my webcast there or simulcast, something like that, something to that effect, right? Because right now what I have to do is I could post videos a day late or something. I don't know. It's weird. We got a truck. Another one. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching them, and they're talking about this thing, and they're talking about how everybody's doubling down on this thing, and I'm like I'm hearing stuff about, people talking about it looks like it's going to just be an endemic, right? Not a pandemic. This is going to be that. But then I hear people are saying, no, you got to have KN95s instead of N95s, and they're sending out these test kits, and there's like, all this stuff. And I'm going like, what the heck's going on? And this is the knock on wood part, I'm saying. And then I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, well, it's been 2 years now, coming up on close to 2 years. All right. And 2 years ago, I had to go to a dentist, early on, right around the time, In fact, 2 years ago to this day, I was basically in recovery from cancer surgery. I was lucky. I mean, not lucky for that, but I mean, I was lucky to have had that surgery just prior to this thing, becoming big. In other words, I was home recuperating from what do they call it? A radical prostatectomy. Okay, that was me 2 years ago. That wasn't fun. That was not fun. So, and then just when I recovered from that, and then I had this tooth problem. And so I had to go get to a dentist. And by then it was like, oh, okay, you need a test. The dentist wouldn't even see me until I had a test. And they were having the drive-through test, and I had to get a friend of mine to drive me. And snow plows. It must be icy out there. So I got a test right in the heart of this thing. I had been in the hospital. I had been exposed to all kinds of people. The friend who took me to get the test, we drove in his SUV. We weren't wearing a mask or anything to it. But, we put them on when we got to the place, waiting in line. You have an appointment, but it's still a car appointment. You're in line at this parking lot next to this place. It's weird. And so anyway, I get the test, and it was in the early days where they're like, yeah, that was fun. So I get the result back. I've shown it on this show a couple of times, and it was negative. And I was figuring, I was sweating it out. I figured I'd be positive because I was like around this guy who has this business that has lots of customers in and out, fast food type of thing. Fast food, basically. I would go to the supermarket. I was around a lot of people. And the test was negative. So I go to the dentist. It was negative. They do that stuff. That's fine. And so basically I got into the old bandana type of thing, where I basically was just... My mic just fell down. This is like a 1995 microphone that I told this story once before. I was doing a DJ gig at a nightclub, no longer exists. Across the street, oddly enough, was a music store, where they sold amps, guitars, and stuff like that. And the microphone I had at the time, which was a decent microphone, just died. I don't know if I dropped it. I don't know what happened, but it just broke, or something was messed up with it. So I sent a friend of mine, used to hang out with me and assist me in some of these things, across the street. I said, just buy any mic. And I didn't have a bunch. I said, just get the cheapest mic just to get through. It's just a DJ gig, because I'll get And so she went over and got this mic. It was like 1995, right? It's like a karaoke mic or something weird like that. And I've been using it. This was 7 or 8 years ago. 8 years ago. 9 years ago. Now I have a really nice mic. Well, it's back there. And I was using it for a while, but it was one of those with a preamp and stuff, and I was getting a hum, and I bought this extra thing to add like an echo and effects and all this stuff. I was really trying to set up a really cool studio, but I was getting this like weird hum, and it just wasn't right. So I just yanked this old microphone back out. This is last year, halfway through the year. And that's what I'm using. It's really weird. And I see all these people using like these really expensive microphones and stuff like that. And it's like, I'm using this 1995 thing. In other words, I couldn't find the hum, what was wrong with my system. So I basically, and it was a pain in the ass. It took me almost a whole day. I had this very complex audio system set up to do all kinds of things. And I literally had to strip it down to the bare bones, nothing, right? And then start from scratch, and it works. Make a long story longer and end this show within the next 4 minutes. 3.5. Less than that. 2 minutes. 3 minutes. So I'm sitting in this chair and I'm going like, okay, so since the 2 years of me getting a negative test, and then I had to go in and I had a CT scan for something where they did just while they were at it, because it was a chest CT scan, but it was a whole bottom abdominal thing. And, they focused on, various parts, but they made, while they were at it, they checked my lower lungs, because that's where this thing tends to go. Like the new one basically gets into your upper respiratory, and that's why it's passable like the common cold. You see, and it beats the immune system. That's why people who even have the thing, they still get it, because it doesn't get a chance to hit your immune system. The way I understand it, it's been explained to me. I may be wrong. I'm not a medical professional. I'm just saying that's what a doctor told me. All right? My doctor. And so what happens is, after 2 years or almost 2 years, they look at me and I'm fine. My immune system's fine. I got other problems. Like I say, I'm dealing with like trying to like walk on eggshells about my gallbladder, and I'm eating all this other healthy food and stuff. But it's like, I see all this hullabaloo and this craziness, and even in the county where I live, they're saying, oh, the cases have skyrocketed and all this stuff. And it's like, it's almost like surreal to me, because I'm almost like, well, I don't know. All the people I know and me, none of us seem to have it and get it. And we're all around each other, and we're just wearing like bandanas and stuff. It's really weird. It's kind of crazy. And it's strange to be like from the outside looking in at that and watching this go on. And that's just an observation. I'm not trying to make a point or anything about that. I'm just saying it was just something I was thinking about yesterday. I'm going like, this is so weird. This is like the national obsession, the global obsession. Everybody's crazy about this thing. And I'm going like, I don't know. I don't get it. It's weird. And I talk to people on the phone and some elderly people. My mother is 88 and stuff, and she hasn't gotten it. I don't know. It's just really weird. Anyway, all I could say is, good morning. You know, have a great day. Thanks for watching. You know, as always, there's my 2 books. Then What is my latest. Codex is previous. You should get them both and get the print versions. Hey, I put a bunch of new stuff up, but great solar stuff. So check it out. You know, scroll all the way down. There's some really cool stuff there. And of course, you go to rockflux.com, TonyCaravanLive.com, and there's links there to get the hoodies, shirts, bags, you know, all that kind of. You can get all kinds of stuff with, you know, branded and with my sayings on it. So check it out. You know, would help support the show. Would appreciate it. Thanks. Talk to you tomorrow.